What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Force Sensitive. Right back like we left something. Back to back, Gord. How you like them apples?
Not gonna complain.
I
I'm
might,
having fun.
I might space it out. Like I might put it out next week in order to kind of let the first one breathe a bit, because I don't think we have anything lined up for because we can't do it the next week. But we can do it today, and we barely could do it today. But by the grace of the Force, we were able to make contact. It came right down to the wire. Joining us today is, what do you want to go by? You want to go by Eric?
Go by, Eric's fine.
Okay, we have Mr. Eric Z in the house today. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm I have the day off, so I'm doing better than most days.
Yeah, that's our days off are fantastic. They're very fantastic. I have some days off coming up myself. What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? And
Just family. No big plans.
what about you, Gordon?
Same thing.
Yeah,
Gathering
hers or
either
yours?
at my uncle's or my mother's house. Not sure yet.
Oh, okay. All right. I am. We're having a little something here, and I think a dolphin might be stopping by to eat with us, and the dolphin's girlfriend, and that might be it. Low key, very low key.
That sounds so good.
Yeah, it's not hateful. Look, I'm over family gatherings. Like, I'm over it. I'll be with my buddies any day of the week, but my family, it's like, I mean, I was really just my dad, so and he's often gallivanting in South Carolina somewhere anyway. All right, but enough about that. Speaking of Thanksgiving, giving thanks to this wonderful franchise that we all love. Eric, what was your first impressions of Star Wars? Tell us your first experience.
My first experience with Star Wars was actually the first thing I remember doing one-on-one with my dad.
Uh-huh.
I was 5 years old. We went to go see Star Wars in the theater. And I was thinking about this, and it was the first thing I remember. And I remember he came off a bad train accident. He's an operator for a local transit authority. He drove the rapid transit trains, kind of like a subway in Cleveland.
Oh, no kidding.
And he was in a head-on collision.
Wow.
And it was the summer before, and he was in the hospital a long time. He was recovering a long time, and my sister had just been born that year. So I feel like we went to he took me to the movies to just do something one-on-one with him after a kind of a rough year.
Huh.
And we went to the theater, and I remember being blown away. I'd never seen anything like, Star Wars up till that point.
Sure.
I was raised on like Combat, the TV show, Star Trek, things like that, but Star Wars blew all that away. Mm-hmm. Like right from the opening battle scene, it was just incredible to me, and it glued me to the screen the whole time.
It's I love like the family dynamics. Like, mine was very similar. How old were you when you first saw it?
I was 5.
Okay, and you got to see it in the theater. That's pretty cool. That's historic. And I take it you got to see them in release order as well, which we find is very rare.
Well, not exactly.
Oh, for Christ's sake! Eric.
Well,
oh, right. I remember I never saw Empire in the theater, and I was thinking, why did that happen? Well, more family things. My younger sister died that year.
Oh my God!
So she had leukemia, so she passed away that September, and she was sick from like January till she passed, and so everything's kind of in turmoil. So we never got to see that. I never got to see Empire, and so I had to pick it. I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater.
Wow! And then you saw Empire after that?
I saw Empire after that. My family got a VCR in like '84, and
gotcha.
So we sent the VCR to my grandmother's house because Cleveland didn't get cable until like '88. So she recorded it off of HBO.
Yeah, that's where mine was too.
And
so let's backtrack a little bit. So, when you see this in the theater, was it just you and your father that went?
Yes.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. And how did he feel about it?
I think he liked it. I think he's more of a cowboys and Indians guy.
Sure.
So I think some of the aspects of Star Wars appealed to him. Probably Han Solo appealed to him, but I think he could take it or leave it.
I got you. I just had this memory pop into my head. There was like this model kit that you could buy. There were Star Wars models all over the place. A lot of them were snap tight and all that kind of stuff. But there was one model kit of Jabba's palace. Does anyone recall that? It had like a
Yeah.
okay, cool. It had like the plastic tray. You could build a little bit of the borders around, and then it came with like a ton of characters that went in it. And I always found that set alluring because I always wanted more of those characters in my 3 3/4 collection. Well, my dad bought it for me when we were out somewhere, and then we came back to watch a movie, and I think it was Back to the Future. And we were having dinner, and like on Friday night, if he had me on Friday night, it was special. So like I was there, like we always ate in front of the TV on Friday night. We had like little TV trays and stuff, and I begged him to be able to put this model kit together while we were eating dinner, and he was very adamantly against it. But I eventually convinced him. Within 20 seconds of getting this modeling kit out, I spilt my chocolate milk all over it. Like, all over it. My dad was pissed. And he got up and he kicked the box. It was like the top, the top box that went over it, but it had chocolate milk all over that too. The chocolate milk went flying all over the furniture, the walls, the TV, like the whole kit and caboodle. And I was just like, oh no, it's going to get so much worse now. But yeah, I don't know why that just popped into my head, but that was a vivid memory of mine. So when you saw it that early and you saw it with your father and you're about 5 years old, you're in that kind of magical era of an age of seeing it. Did you get into the collection side of it at all?
Well, I didn't get any figures or vehicles until, was it Christmas 78 or 78, until the action figures were available.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get anything until that Christmas. And the problem is that toy line had been picked over by then. So I got the Millennium Falcon, the Land Speeder,
Nice,
R2 and C-3PO, Chewbacca, Princess Leia, and a Stormtrooper. And that's all I had.
That's awesome, though. I mean, that's a pretty good run to get the Falcon and stuff.
Yeah, and of course, immediately I tried to put the Falcon together myself, and immediately lost pieces.
Right? Yeah, no, of course.
But I had those two vehicles for like 10 years at least.
Yeah. And do you have any of those now? Do you have any of them today?
No, they're gone.
I have my original Falcon. It's in serious disarray. I have the main plastic body piece. The ramp that comes down is broken, but I have it. The struts are long gone. The guns for the top and bottom are long gone. The satellite dish is long gone. The chair inside is long gone. The chess table inside is long gone. I think I do have the plastic tray piece that goes over top of the like the sitting area.
Oh, right.
And I do have the plastic piece that was the secret compartment cover. I still have that, but everything else is gone. But mine was a hand-me-down though, and I think I missed most of it to begin with.
Yeah, that sounds about par for the course for most of those first Falcons. I remember on those Falcons, the landing gear, you couldn't keep them up. So if you took a piece of popsicle stick and stuck them between, you can get the landing gear to stay down. Rather.
Yeah, I definitely still have that problem. Mine looks like it's like in a West Coast rap video from '92. Like it's like on three wheels. But yeah, no, mine is a disaster. But it's like I can't let it go because it's like it was so important to me at that age.
Well, sure, right. That's why I won't let my oldest sell any of his stuff.
But it's funny because rarely it's funny we've talked to a lot of people that are all huge fans, but we haven't really talked to anybody that collected the original toy line in any serious regard. Like a lot of people we've spoken to just picked up one or two, but I remember that I had them because they were cheap. They were like $1 a piece, $2 a piece.
Right.
Right.
None of that was expensive back then, really.
Right.
I think I forget what the Falcon went for at the time, but that might have been the most expensive playset up until the Death Star.
Right, for sure.
I think that was like a 25 or 30 originally.
Yeah, I can believe that.
It was cheaper.
Right, for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also like, Star Wars is kind of the beginning of the collectible, toy era anyway. So like,
well,
go ahead.
Well, they birthed that whole thing. Like, you wouldn't have the 3 3/4 G.I. Joe without Star Wars.
Correct.
You just wouldn't.
You wouldn't have He-Man either.
No, none of that.
It's so interesting, man. But it's like that stuff did like it was the approach. You know, the size, the fact that they were compatible with the vehicles, the fact that they did so many obscure characters. You know, like all of that stuff was kind of uncharted territory.
Right, exactly. And it was, like you said, it was easy to collect. You could buy the play sets. I mean, the Falcon was a play set. I mean, so it would give all kinds of possibilities.
So I want to ask you some questions about some of the toys, just to see if we're on the same page at all. So, did your neighborhood or anybody in your neighborhood have a sandbox?
I had a sandbox.
Was it ever Tatooine?
It was. It was Tatooine early on,
for sure.
For sure, and then even like when I got into GI Joe, a lot of times we would play Star Wars. I would just port those figures. Or this is Luke Skywalker now, because I didn't have a Luke Skywalker figure, and so we did a lot of that. And like I would make lightsabers out of toothpicks and paint them.
Right, that's awesome.
Stuff like that.
Little did you know that you were ahead of the pointed lightsaber curve.
What's that?
You were ahead of the pointed lightsaber curve. You know, like
there you go. Yeah.
So you grew up in Ohio, so
I did.
It had to snow. Was outside ever Hoth?
For sure. So I did have a snow speeder.
Dude, I loved all that stuff. Like I remember, like when it snowed, like every kid would come outside, and you know we would kind of patch our collections together to have like a proper like Hoth battle, and like
absolutely,
you'd always wait for the snotty rich kid that had the AT-AT to come out. You'd be waiting for him all day.
Right, he wouldn't come out until like hours.
Yeah, his mom had to make sure that he was going to survive the day and bundle him up all nice.
Meanwhile, you're out there in a t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah, or like just some ragtag 2 layers of sweatpants, and he comes out in that kid that came out in the ski suit. Like, oh, get out of here. But yeah, so dude, remember? Here's another Star Wars. I had a pair of winter gloves that, like, when they got cold, like the Millennium Falcon would like show up on them.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that I remember as a kid having. But yeah, I remember like in a sandbox digging out like a little pit, and then like taking like a little piece of wood that my dad had in his like shop or whatever, and like placing it over the pit, and that was the sand barge. And you know, I put all the characters on there and dump them into the Sarlacc pit or what have you. But yeah, man, like those toys, the playability factor of that toy at that time, and I mean, I got into it late, obviously, but that's crazy. It was crazy, like what it spawned and like the kind of boundaries it leapt. All right.
No, I agree.
So you dealt with this horrible, circumstance regarding your family, which is a real bummer and very difficult for me to even navigate through, because I like when people talk about things like when their parents were divorced, and I can kind of make fun of it. But there's no laughter to be had at this. I'm terribly sorry for your loss.
Oh no, it's okay. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. But still, I mean, that's fucking tragic, dude. So then you had Return of the Jedi. So luckily, you skipped the bummer of the movies, and you kind of had just the kind of the fun ones to kind of enjoy at first. What was it like seeing Return of the Jedi, having not seen Empire?
Well, somehow I had not heard that Darth Vader confessed that he was Luke's father. And we were on our way to the theater. My mom took a bunch of our friends. It might have been the Scout Den, Cub Scout Den. Mm-hmm. Somebody took us all to the Return of the Jedi. And I remember being on the way, and one of the kids was like, Vader's Luke's father. I'm like, no way. That cannot be true. Just in no universe can Darth Vader be Luke's father.
Did you scream, "It's impossible"?
Then, of course, then when they meet up, Luke's like, yeah, you're my dad. I accept that. It's like, oh, I guess that's a thing.
Right. Yeah, because that's like a huge, like, did you yell spoilers?
No.
Because that is, like, that whole movie, like the heart of that movie entirely relies on that information from Empire.
Right. And they even had, and I remember the ad campaign up to Return of the Jedi. It's like one of the ads was like, is Darth Vader Luke Skywalker's father? And I'm like, that can't be a thing. That's not real. And of course it was. Yeah. I mean, it didn't, I wasn't, my whole universe wasn't shattered by it, but it just tripped me out a little when I was in the theater.
Well, it's funny because at the time, the general reaction was largely was anger. People were pissed that was the case. And people were like, "Oh, it's a big scam," and that's why I think they marketed Jedi that way, like because people were like, "Oh, it's a big scam. It's just a trick. We're gonna find the truth out in the next one." And
right, and I don't think when Star Wars. I believe in my heart that the original Star Wars was not set up for Luke Skywalker to be his son. And I think that's something they kind of like in Empire, they kind of like threw in there. You know what I mean? I don't think Lucas wrote it that way originally.
What do you think about that, Gort?
They made a lot of changes throughout the production, but I don't know that to be one. That might have been something that Lucas had in the back of his head, but
okay.
Other stuff,
I'm not
like
sure
like
either.
Leia, for example, that's last minute, 100%.
Right. Yeah. I'd even heard because they probably kept things open to kind of toy around with the idea, which is kind of what I think they're doing with the sequel trilogy, largely.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
But they. Because I remember hearing rumors that he was always intended to be Luke's father, but then I heard rumors that he wasn't intended to be Luke's father. He was actually intended to be Leia's father, but Leia and Luke weren't supposed to be siblings, and and then that and then the whole thing about Obi-Wan killing his father, and like it's just it's interesting how that kind of transpired and like how upset the people are or were at the time, but now. I grew up with it. It just I can't remember whether or not I knew that information when I saw Empire. Like I don't remember any shock to it, So and I saw them well after they were all out of the theaters. So I don't know if it was just kind of common knowledge, like on the playground. Do you know what I mean?
Right. See, I heard it before, and then when you saw it, you're like, yeah, that all follows.
Right.
There's an interesting thing to the shock with. Like me and Lando. I had seen Return of the Jedi first, so I knew Han was in carbonite, but how that came about, Lando giving him up, that blew my mind. That's my big surprise. Like I knew that he was the father and all that. Vader, I mean.
You're like, so it's actually you that's the double-crossing, slimy, no-good swindler.
And one more thing. When we're talking about Lucas's, intentions, I mean, who's to really say? We just found out that Greedo was supposed to have the last word the entire time.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, agreed. The dude, I love. As a side note, I love when Lando sees Chewie and he's like, "Sup, Chewbacca?"
Yeah,
that shit is hard. You still hanging around with this loser? It's great. Dude, and I also, because we just, we've been watching them recently, and I love when Han says, all right, you old smoothie. dude, who calls him a smoothie?
Well, in 1980.
Right. It's so good. Okay. So now you see, how do you feel about Return of the Jedi then? Just generally, how do you feel about that film after seeing it?
I was a kid, so I liked it. I was, 10, 11 years old. It was great. I liked the space battle. I love the space battles, the starfighters. I loved all that.
Right.
The teddy bear battle. Even when I was a kid, I'm like, yeah, these bears aren't okay. Fine. I'll take that they defeated the Legion. I get that, but it always never. It was still great, though. Everything about it, and that end scene where Luke is fighting Vader, and that just blew me away altogether.
That whole, the Emperor Luke Vader, that whole element of it is what saves that movie for me.
Right.
Because the Jabba stuff is fun, but all of that stuff with the Endor is it gets harder for me as I get older, but. The way that it's cut in between the space battle, which is still, I think that space battle, obviously has been edited and touched up and everything, but it still holds up pretty well as being a pretty epic battle.
Yeah, and those special effects, they were so far ahead of their time, and how they did it is just so incredible that, I'll watch that right now, and I'll,
And it seems like it could have come out last year. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it doesn't seem like it was left. Like some of the space battle in A New Hope seems dated to me. You know, like that end sequence.
The original, yeah.
But like the Return of the Jedi space battle, like it still feels modern to me.
It looks good, but the thing is, the scale of it feels all wrong, especially after Rogue One.
Oh yeah, because that
Like
was
if you watch them like a bit more back to back, and I had done something to that effect, and it's interesting.
yeah, because you would expect it to be a larger battle.
Yeah.
That's always bothered me.
Yeah.
I never bought that. They had like maybe a half a dozen capital ships and like 3 dozen starfighters. That is not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
And I always, well, we'll get to it, but I always hoped that it would have been a much grander battle.
And it's so funny because like to this day I feel like there's not a moment in Return of the Jedi where a TIE fighter feels intimidating to me.
Well, it feels like it's about to collapse into a little ball of fire.
Yeah, it just feels like it's been waiting all day to blow up.
Well, they just kind of come at you like gnats, like in the summertime.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think about the TIE fighter attack in The Last Jedi on the bombers. It feels like a swarm of hornets.
Right.
It's like the first time they've ever felt kind of like menacing. Like you kind of see how they get down.
You know,
right.
That's how I feel about the fighters that show up, and they're in Guardians of the Galaxy. All those like necrocraft things.
Yeah.
They feel very insect-like, not just by design, but the way that they're moving around. But you're not wrong with Star Wars. Like it's not dissimilar. Just here's a ton of stuff. It's just being flung at you.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Yeah, it's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Just duck and weave.
Yeah. So then you watch Empire afterward, and how does that sit with you?
That first battle on Hoth, I mean, I think that was probably my favorite bit of cinema that I've ever seen.
Oh, really? What is it about it? What is it about it? Talk about it.
It's just it's rebels doing rebel things and Empire doing imperial things, and you actually get to see like a battle between the Empire and the Rebellion that's down and dirty, and you really get the feeling of like how desperate the alliance is to get this rebellion moving, and it just does it all for me as far as kind of the essence of that struggle is right there.
And it has that trench warfare, which is cool too. And it's and like we're always used to seeing the trench warfare like in like a grassy area, but like you're seeing it in the inverse. It's like something you don't think about. Like I love how Star Wars like turns little things on its head. And makes it work for an entirely different universe. And I agree with you. All that stuff, like the prepping stuff of that sequence, is probably my favorite. Like where they're like checking their guns and looking out over the binoculars and loading up the cannons and all that stuff. Like that's the stuff that feels like it grounds it somehow. It makes it feel real and believable.
Exactly.
So, do you collect all through this period? Are you still maintaining a Star Wars merchandising, component to your life?
The Star Wars merchandise, the actual collecting of those figures kind of faded on me after my initial. I got a couple more figures after the Christmas, but a kid from up the street came down. My best friend growing up came down. He showed up with 2 G.I. Joe action figures in '82. And that was it. We did G.I. Joe. That's why, like, when we wanted to play Star Wars, we would take G.I. Joe characters and make them Star Wars characters.
Right.
That I had the Millennium Falcon, so it worked out, and we had the Land Speeder, so
right.
But I always liked the Star Wars vehicles. I desperately wanted an X-wing, and I don't think my parents ever got me one because I was so into G.I. Joe that they were like, "We're not going to waste money on this, where we can get you the Sky Striker."
Yeah.
So
yeah. That was always that's something. I mean, to be fair, even my wife is very giving, but to this day, whenever I'm embarking on a new collection, that's when she gets a little like, "What are we doing?" Like, I think I think you got enough going on here. So I dealt with that with growing up as well because I was collecting. I was playing with Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers. Those three for sure were probably my big three toy wise. But I also had like, DC superpower figures. I had
I remember power figures.
Yep, I had a few He-Man figures here and there, but not a lot. And He-Man was one of those ones where my dad was like, "Look, we can dabble in this, but we're not. We're like the budget." My dad is. I mean, he's Gort's favorite folklore character. He he. I'll never forget that. Like everything with my dad was like regimented. So like. He recorded stuff off of TV, and then he would take the tape, like the sticker that you put on it, and run it through the typewriter and type the name of the film that was on it and the counter numbers, because there'd be like 3 movies on one VHS. Right. So you could fast forward and watch the counter and stop it right when the movie was getting ready to start. Like at one point, and he says he never did this, but I feel like I remember him doing it. But he used to put a R and a L on every pair of socks in my head. And the only reason why I remember, and maybe I dreamed it, and memory is a funny thing, but I remember saying to him like, "It's too much," and then his like rebuttal to it was, "Socks have memory," and I remember thinking to myself that wasn't entirely wrong.
No, but if you wear socks on either feet for long enough, it doesn't really matter.
Right. But so he used to take out of the ATM or like the bank machine every week a set amount of cash, and it was every week. And I want to say at first, because we struggled a bit at first because my dad left my mom and left him with nothing, and it was a whole to do. But by the time my dad was like up on his feet, I want to say it was $200. And I could be wrong about that, but in my head it was $200, and that covered the groceries. It covered, school stuff, whatever had to go down that week. It was $200. So as we got closer to the weekend, and it might be every 2 weeks it was $200, but as we got closer to the end of the mark, that was when he would take me to a toy store, and whatever he had left over, he would, allow me to use. But
right.
But when I would, like, I'd be like, "Look, I want to get into this He-Man stuff." And, look, we're doing. Like, you're either doing Star Wars and G.I. Joe and Transformers, or you're doing Star Wars and He-Man and Transformers. We're not doing all, and I still feel like I face that same challenge with my wife to this day.
But
she's a lot easier to get over than my dad. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I just remember my cousin had He-Mans, and he lived on the next street. And I would go over and I played with them. And the figures looked great, but there were 5 points of articulation. So I wasn't interested. But I do remember like not wanting to press my parents for another collection. I think that's one of the reasons I didn't try to get into Star Wars.
Right.
So I was doing G.I. Joe. My dad, drove a train for a living, drove the rapid transit. And so he did pretty well, but we weren't swimming in money.
Right.
So I was trying to keep it budgeted, just this. And I did build these Star Wars models. I had Millennium Falcon, an X-Wing. I might have had an A-Wing. A-Wing is always my favorite starfighter, but
yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, but I did have the models. I think I had a couple TIE fighters. I do remember trying to explain to my parents that I need another X-Wing. I need a squadron, and they're like, "No, you don't need a squadron."
Yeah. I remember trying to buy multiple stormtroopers, and my dad gave me grief about that too.
Yeah, I had a friend that lived a few blocks away. His name is Brian Sanborn, and he was the only guy I knew that was like super into Star Wars, and he had an army of stormtroopers. And I think his parents had money, and he didn't want to let on that like his parents bought him like 10 stormtroopers. And he's like, "I found this in a shoebox down in a ravine somewhere." And I'm thinking, I don't care. It's cool that you have that, but yeah.
Yeah, dude. I remember like those kids that have money. They tried to hide it.
Right.
I remember that.
He was a good guy. I mean,
he was, oh yeah, you fucking find all these snacks in your pantry down there too, because
yeah,
my house doesn't have these. Yeah. So okay. So then, what is your level of fandom? Then you're obviously, the Star Wars kind of stuff kind of settled down a bit, and the G.I. Joe took precedent. Articulation seems to have been of importance to you, which makes sense for the G.I. Joes. So, like at the end of seeing the original trilogy, where would you rank it in terms of your interest at that time?
Um, See, like Star Wars, like I love Star Wars, and I always love Star Wars, and I was very interested in it. I think it was just tempered by the fact that I didn't go all in on the figure line.
Right.
And if I was all in on Star Wars figures instead of G.I. Joe, I would have, definitely been like a huge fanboy through the 80s. But I always loved Star Wars. I remember, you know, just like I must have watched. We had all the movies taped on video on the VHS tapes,
Right.
and I watched all the time.
Yeah.
And I think I probably watched a movie once a week back in the day. So I love the story. The story always spoke to me. I think Luke Skywalker is my favorite character at that point.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, and I somehow, for some reason, I identify with Luke Skywalker more than Han Solo. So
well, that was the thing. I mean, at least for me growing up, like when you went outside, like there was the kids that wanted to be Luke and the kids that wanted to be Han, and kids would fight over it, and and it was always like, and they were. I just think it's like it has something to do with the way that you're wired and how you see the world, and I don't like. I think maybe like it's like hopeful imagination versus like pragmatic cynicism.
Right, exactly. And yeah, I think I probably just identify with Luke more. I don't know. I wasn't as cynical as a kid. So
Yeah, I think that mine probably had to do more so with family drama that was happening at the time.
Sure.
Okay, so how does your Dark Ages era go from 84, let's say, up until the mid 90s?
Well, like I said, I built the models. So I even had a Star Destroyer model.
Mm-hmm.
So I always did pretty. I always had something to like hold on to. That's the thing. I always had something Star Wars that I can hold in my hands.
Right.
I mean, I even think I had the movie comic book from the first movie.
Uh-huh.
I would read through that. We didn't have a comic shop in our neighborhoods in our area, so that was pretty much the only comic book I had when I was a kid.
Right.
So I always had something tangible to hold on to. And then 93, my oldest son was born. So when Power of the Force came out,
so 93. How old are you?
I'm 47.
No, at 93.
In 93, I would have been 21.
Damn, dude, early start, Mac.
A little bit. That's a whole story.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so 93, you have a son. I mean, that's a life-changing experience, especially for a guy that just got able to drink alcohol. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You're supposed to be in the prime of bad decision making.
Right. Oh, rewind a little bit. I was in college before that, and freshman year during finals, we were watching A New Hope, and that scene in A New Hope where Vader kills Obi-Wan and then like his robe falls to the floor and the lightsaber kind of falls on top of it. That cracked us up so much. We did like this whole movie of Star Wars. And one of the final scenes was Vader killing Obi-Wan. We threw a bathrobe on the floor and just threw a flashlight on it. And I still have that tape. I got to find it. But
that's awesome.
Like my Camaro was the Millennium Falcon. Like my buddy was R2-D2. He's just a big box on him in an office chair. And we just like pushed him around the hallway. That kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
And people are trying to study for finals. We're out here like going pew pew bang bang,
Right. I remember whenever I would leave like dirty clothes on the floor, like in my room, and my dad would come in, he would like step on it the way that Vader would step on Obi-Wan's cloak. Like that was like a thing he did.
Anything up there?
Yeah, and if I ever got a good mark in school, which was very rare, he would say impressive, most impressive.
Nice.
So the resurgence. Did you ever get into any of the EU stuff?
I was aware of the EU stuff, but like I said, without access to a comic book store, like within, I think the closest one was like 10 miles away.
Uh-huh.
So without access to that, I couldn't really get into it.
Right.
Which is a bummer because I was interested in it. I just didn't have I couldn't get to it.
What about Shadows of the Empire?
Again, I was aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I bought the what was that? The Dash Rendar and Prince Zizou? Is that what
what is
Scissors.
it? Scissors. Prince Scissors. That's what we've been calling him. Shizor, I think, is his name. But
Yeah, that's it.
something like that.
Yeah.
There is a funny bit in the movie called Free Enterprise where the main character's in the toy aisle and he's like begging on the Shadow of the Empire toys, and the kid comes up like he's like, "Who's this guy? Prince Zizi?" And the kid was like, "Zizou." And
what is this?
He's like, there's a movie called Free Enterprise, and it's about a bunch of Star Trek geeks.
Really?
And the one guy's a toy collector. It's great. Eric McCormick's in it.
I gotta check this out.
Check it out. I'm sure it's on like Freeform or something on streaming. I think that's the last time I saw it was a few years ago, but it's really good. And so the guy's like, "All right, I'm going to educate you about toys," and takes the kid off to like talk to him about toys.
Huh? I gotta check this out.
Anyway,
so let me run through it, and we'll just do yes or no. Did you buy the video game?
Shadows of the Empire. I remember playing the video game. I don't know if I bought it or rented it.
Okay, we'll give you credit. And you bought the toys.
Bought the toys.
You didn't buy the comic because there was no comic book store close. What about the novel?
No, I didn't read the novel. Not like I was aware of Star Wars novels, and I really wanted to read the Heirs of the Empire. There's the Heirs of the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command. Were those the three main ones?
Yep, they were the first three, like the trilogy.
I was aware of them. I just in the '90s I was poor, and I just didn't seek them out.
And having babies.
And I had a kid, right?
And what about? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this because according to the sound scan, Gort is the only one that ever bought it. But what about the soundtrack?
No soundtrack.
All right.
That is a shame.
Okay, so still, that's one thing that I've been curious about as I've been going through this, and I don't think that we found one person that one piece of merchandise didn't hit for Shadows, which that was their kind of beta testing. So you see the trailer for episode 1, and how does that sit with you?
I think I saw it on the internet, which I had to wait for buffering. But but I think I might also watch that trailer like 800 times at least. I think when I come home from work, I get on my my trash PC at the time, and I would watch it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And my son would have been. What came out? 99? Is that a true statement?
Yep.
Yeah.
So my son I took my son. He was 6 years old. And I just remember just being blown away. Like, I love the Jedi, and the fact that there's like more than just like one old dude in the desert as a Jedi, it's fantastic. And then Samuel L. Jackson's in it. Oh heck,
right.
I mean, what else do you want? I mean, I didn't know he wouldn't do anything, but
This is an interesting question that I haven't asked, but if you remember, upon seeing the trailer for the first time, what were the things you were most interested in?
Well, obviously, I was interested in Jedi.
So just like just from the trailer, like it was Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan that you were most interested in.
Actually, Darth Maul, right?
Right.
I mean, because he seemed like the coolest character on those trailers.
Yeah, he was definitely the kind of the money shot of that trailer for sure.
Right. And I remember like the shot like of the ship taking off like in front of him, and he's the shot from behind me. Like,
yeah.
That sticks out about that trailer the most.
I remember. What about you, Gort? Do you remember?
For the trailer?
Yeah, like the things that you were like, man, these are the things I want to know about. Like, what is this? Like, what is this about?
Probably like the monsters and things. Like, I always thought that stuff was really cool in Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
Like the giant fish monsters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, there's a couple quick shots of that in the trailer, but there's nothing else like it. So it's extremely alien to the rest of the trailer.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to know, like, why, where, what?
Well, one of the things Star Wars does really well is it's sci-fi. It's in space, but they always ground you to like Earth-like environments and like the oceans. That was one of those elements. Deserts, forests.
Yeah.
I was really impressed.
The kind of ecosystem of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so you can like like you're playing outside. You could be anywhere. Can be somewhere in the Star Wars universe.
Right. Yeah. Yep,
So,
yep.
which is always great.
That's true. I think for me it was like it was three scenes specifically. Obviously, Maul, which I've talked about at length, but also like the scene of Padme like standing, looking out the window in the palace, and like the light coming in on her. Like I just remember thinking like how like elegant that seemed, and like how rich it seemed, and how much I wanted to know every little detail about who she was and why she was there and what she was looking at and what's the deal with this castle.
Sure.
And then the other thing, ironically, is that one shot of like the Gungans riding those things coming out of the mist. Like I was like, man, yeah. I was like, man, whatever this is getting ready to be badass. you know who this is? Fucking Jar Jar Binks. But like that scene, like it just captivated my imagination. And like it's funny because you go back and you watch it now, and it doesn't have the veil of ignorance over it, and you see it. You see like the real movie. Like you see is like his head getting zapped with the little pod racer electricity and all that stuff. But like seeing the trailer for the first time, none of that really resonates appropriately.
Right. When you watch the trailer now, and all you see is Misa gonna have a big bomb battle.
Yeah.
That's what you see.
Yeah. Yeah, but like Watto looks cool. Like everything just looks so cool and new and fresh, and and then you see it, and it's like I was spellbound by it, of course, but I see it now, and I'm like, I think about that trailer and how it kind of definitely got the best of me. It capitalized on.
Well, sure, and the trailer did its job, right?
For sure.
So
for sure, and you loved it after seeing it the first time.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
When I went to see it, I took my son. He was 6, so I went to see the target. I went to see it with the target audience, and he was already all in on Star Wars because, like I said, for him, quote unquote for him, I bought him all the Power to Force stuff. So we had a squadron of X-wings. We had TIE fighters and Millennium Falcon, and so we would have great big space battles in the backyard.
Wow, that's fucking cool. Did you get to take him to see the special editions? Was he old enough?
I never saw the special editions in the theater. We did get it. We got it on the VH. We got the VHS set.
But you got obviously you watched it with your son.
Yes.
And then he started collecting like around that time.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Like that generational mirror is so amazing to me. You saw the original movies. You had a couple of the figures now. You're in a position where your son is watching the original movies and he has some figures, and it's like just like history repeating. It's Star Wars, very Star Wars notion, I think.
Yeah, we even in the basement, we even set up a setup for like the final battle of of Phantom Menace, and I actually made out of cardboard and illustration board the doors that open where Darth Maul's behind them, just trying to chill until they get there. And
awesome.
we even did that, and I might even time the movie on the TV or something. I had the music. I might have looked at maybe.
Oh, right.
It opens it like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And I think what's special about that was he didn't know I had the Darth Maul figure.
Oh, okay.
So when those doors open, there's a brand new figure, and they're about to go down.
That's awesome, dude. That's amazing. That's like a beautiful. It's beautiful. So, what did you think of the special editions? We'll backtrack a little bit.
I liked them for the most part. Anything that in my mind, anything that quote unquote improved the movies was better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if like that scene where Han talks to Jabba by the Falcon towards the beginning. Uh-huh. I don't know if they added Boba Fett to that, like digitally, or if he was always there.
He was added.
He was added. Yeah.
He was added. Okay, that makes sense though.
Yeah.
Because why not give him another 3 seconds of screen time where he doesn't really do anything? But stuff like that. I mean, I remember seeing the original like taping of that where the Jabba wasn't Jabba. He was like just like a fat guy in a
bear suit, bear jacket.
Yeah. And so I remember that, and I had that toy of Jabba. I think I still have it somewhere. It was the only Jabba I ever had. Anyway,
What
Yeah,
about
so
what about
I wish they would have added more starfighters to the final scene.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think 8 starfighters is get that job done. But
And it's kind of crazy. Like here is this. I mean, I guess it's the Empire underestimating. Is how we explain it away.
right.
But like here's this like massive space station, and you're like, yeah, you know what? Scramble 3 fighters out there, and let's get on with let's get on with our day.
Those fan edits that Jed had mentioned on the last episode, I'd watched the entire Yavin battle. They add in the background a lot more fighters attacking each other, like you see it from the cockpit views. And awesome. They had inserted it into some of the other shots as well, and it gives it a very different vibe.
I believe that.
It kind of helps it, but it kind of feels a little like wonky, maybe because I know it doesn't belong there. But,
right,
but it's interesting. I think I sent you the last bit of that when the Death Star explodes.
I don't know if you did or didn't.
It's about to fire the cannon, so you actually see it going off as it explodes.
Oh yes.
Huh.
Yes, you did.
And that's the kind of thing I think that's cool. Like that adds to the tension of the scene. But
yeah. It's I want to sit down and watch those things, but
I'm gonna have to check that out too.
Yeah, it's. I think there's going to be a better experience with the other ones. Like A New Hope, that guy tampered with it a lot. Like if you don't like stuff George Lucas did, this guy did things to his liking, not just fixing things that made sense. But this is how he envisioned it. So some of it's great, and some of it is just you're going to shake your head and wish you skip past it.
Right.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think the best fan edit thing is the videos where the guy puts subtitles for R2D2. Yep. But they're hysterical.
I also love the one where Darth Vader plays the harmonica after he dies. That's probably my favorite one. Because, like, have you seen that one, Gort?
When he's got the helmet off.
Yeah, and he's like his head slumps into like the mouthpiece, and and then in the background that one.
You see the picture where like Billy Joel looks like Darth Vader?
No,
because he has the harmonica. He's so bald, looks just like him.
Oh, maybe I have seen that. Maybe I have seen that. That's incredible. Okay, so but what about the other ones, Empire or Jedi? Any of those changes stick out to you, good or bad?
I'm trying to think of the changes in Empire. I'm trying to.
Most of those were kind of. Aesthetics.
Spin shots.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't fix perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right, Gort. I think that like there wasn't much that needed fixing.
Yeah.
Because like
very cosmetic touch-ups.
Yep.
Most.
The asteroid, the chase in the asteroids was even for today. It's pretty clean and it's pretty pretty great. So you really do much.
That one scene I always enjoy when those 2 TIE fighters are trying to fit through that same canyon at the same time, and like boom, boom, like they attack. That's so good. Like the rhythm of it is so good.
And what I like about Empire there is like the Millennium Falcon. Its movements are so different than the original one, where it's much more of like a fluid movement.
Yeah,
it had an elegance to it that is just fantastic.
Yeah, Empire defines everything about the saga as we know it. Like from
for sure.
From the definition of the Force down to the way the Falcon is supposed to move. Like it defines everything.
And I think a lot of that is just time also. I mean, it kind of just slides around if you really look at it in A New Hope.
Yeah, it's really like a dish. Like just just moving on its way.
I bet you George Lucas fought against having it look more fluid.
Oh, I have no doubt. Oh, stupid. You got to move it all fast. Stupid.
There's no underwear in space, and there's the gravity you don't understand.
Stupid speed.
I feel like the studio's like, well, your instincts are to have it move like a Frisbee. Well, we're not going to do that.
Right. And then Jedi.
Jedi. One of the things about Jedi was I like the scenes at the end where they add it gave the universe more scope. So like you saw Coruscant, you saw the bigger city in Tatooine, and so I love that. Anything that could add to the universe is what I wanted.
It's so funny. I mean, like not to get political, but them pulling down that statue of the Emperor, and then years later, a decade later, we see them pulling down that statue of Saddam in Iraq. Like it was the first thing I thought of when I saw the Iraq shit in Baghdad. I was like, oh my god, it's like what they did to Palpatine.
Right, right.
Did you notice that at all, Gort? Like did that resonate for you?
No,
Oh, really?
no, not like that. No.
Yeah, it was the very first thing I thought of, and it's still my favorite sequence of like that stuff at the end where they add the scenes and Jar Jar gets the last word, of course. Misa free. if you ever, it's like aggravating. Dude, he was banking. He knew that character. He just knew in his heart that character was going to redefine Star Wars and be the fan favorite.
That was going to be the fan favorite toy for the next 15 years.
Yeah, there was no doubt in his mind. Oh boy. Okay, so moving on to Attack of the Clones. Then, how did you sit with that one?
It was a long time to wait for the payoff at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the creepy Anakin stalking Padme, which is weird. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know. Once they got to the clone bit, the only thing I don't understand about, the Republic taking this clone army is like, don't you want to get down to like where this clone army came from and like who paid for it? And,
that is a good point. Everybody just kind of like rolls with it.
Right. Like even the Jedi's like, yeah, we're good. We're just going to take this army. And, no. It just didn't. Someone had a plan for this army. Don't you want to know what that is?
Yeah.
I know their ability to use the Force was diminished. They had to throw that in there. So obviously, that makes them dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. Hubris. I mean, like this was another thing that, in my opinion, Episode 8 helps me digest from the prequels is, they thought so highly of themselves that they kind of missed what was right in front of their face. Right.
And I think that was Luke's point too in Episode 8.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, but like Yoda's kind of aware of it. They had that him and Yoda, when he was sitting and talking, and Obi-Wan was walking and talking. They kind of had a discussion about that, but then they never really got back to that.
And there's that one scene in Attack of the Clones where Palpatine says something and Yoda shoots him a glance like, "What? What was that?" Like it's like he like turns his head slow and like narrows his eyes a bit. Like what is going on there? Like I just really zeroed in on it this past time watching it, but it's early on in the film and they're in Palpatine's office and Palpatine says something and Yoda gives him a glance that's like something's off here.
Were they talking about the assassination attempt?
Yes.
I'm trying to think of what it is because I actually literally watched it yesterday morning. I want to say when he's making the suggestion for Anakin and Obi-Wan to watch after her, but I might be wrong because Sam Jackson is quick to respond to that, but I feel like Yoda might have made a face at that.
Yeah, it might have been that. You know the face I'm talking about though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He just kind of turns and gives him this like
what was that?
Not a crooked look, but it's
like that's an interesting play. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do love like a lot of having seen it too recently, like obviously the problem with that movie is that the heart of it is Anakin and Padme, and that's the stuff that doesn't land as well as the rest of it.
No.
But like a lot of the political posturing and maneuvering that Palpatine does in that film is fascinating to me. And like,
well, that's a whole story. That's the real story of the prequels.
For sure.
What Palpatine's got going on.
For sure.
And he spends the whole first the first two movies at least, like trying to force anybody who would oppose him to join together against him.
Yeah, and he does it. He does it in a slick way, like. It's like in a Brer Rabbit, like don't throw me in the briar patch kind of way,
Right. I'll set myself up as the good guy, and I'll force all these people, all these groups to come against me, and they'll join together, and they'll be out in the open then.
Yeah.
And once they're in the open, I can destroy them.
I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said, people that would trade their freedom for protection deserve neither and will lose both.
True.
Like
he said that.
Yeah,
it's true.
And that kind of reigns, I think, in that saga, like that prequel trilogy. But yeah, so let's talk about the Yoda scene, of course. On on a scale of normie to mega fan like Gort, where do you place the Yoda roar?
I guess I took my son to see that movie too, and there were some kids in the front who have obviously seen it before, because when that happened, they leaped out of their seats and started screaming and yelling, going, "Yeah, yeah, yeah!" And I don't know. It gets a little more troublesome every time I see it.
I'm laughing because I know what you mean. I still love it to this day, but I know what you mean.
And
not seeing it in the theater and the cinematic experience with the sound and seeing it for the first time and all of those things kind of playing together, it doesn't hit quite the same way.
No, it's I think it kind of goes back to that, where at the end of 8, where Luke is just so far beyond, physical altercations and stuff. He could just show up anywhere in the galaxy and take care of business.
Right.
That's probably where Yoda should have been, and there's no way Dooku has more knowledge of the Force than Yoda. There just isn't. Right. So I don't know.
Well, I feel like he's pretty old. Are you sure?
Huh?
He's pretty old. They're both pretty old, and now we know that Yoda can't be doing what he's doing, until he's probably like 200 years old.
That's rough.
But so the one thing I did want to say, because we talked about this with our last guest Jed at length, and another thing that I listening back to it, I was like, this is another thing I wish I would have said, is that the fact that he was his Padawan, it does make for me the believability as well of wanting to kind of return to this sort of grassroots approach to do combat because of this personal history that you have. There's something to be said for all that too, I think. Something that makes it a little bit more digestible for me.
All right, I get that.
But yeah, I still, man, to this day, it's the only time I ever shouted something in a movie theater. When he pulled that lightsaber and that music hit and the whole thing, I shouted, "Oh my God," at the top of my lungs. And it's the only time in the history of my life where when I talk to Cody and people from foreign countries that are Americans are always hooting and hollering about some shit. That's what it makes me think of, is that I lost control of my person and resorted to some sort of primal instinct to let this feeling out. And the only thing I could muster was, "Oh my God," at the top of my lungs. But yeah, what did you think about Dooku generally?
I think he could be a much more interesting character than they put on the screen.
I agree.
His lightsaber was red, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Did he realize he was full on Sith? I mean, do you think he was aware that the Emperor was, the Emperor?
Well, so the Emperor calls him Tyrannus.
Yeah, he's Darth Tyrannus. He's quite aware that he is a Sith Lord. But
I think Dooku is in kind of the same boat as Anakin, in the sense that he thinks he's making a bad, the quote unquote bad choice for the greater good. I think, I don't think he has evil intentions. I think Palpatine and Maul had evil intentions, but I don't think that Anakin and Dooku did.
From just a movie standpoint, I think that his character is very undefined and unclear with what any of his intentions are.
Agreed.
He says a lot of stuff. The Emperor is always up to no good, regardless of what he says.
Right.
But Dooku, I'm not convinced of anything.
Yeah, the Emperor is much more of a mustache twirler.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Dooku, he became maybe he thought that the Force wasn't just dark and light. Maybe he went to the dark side. It was more of a means to an end type of situation. I don't know. That's all the impression I always got about him.
Yeah, no. I think the very same thing. I think that he saw problems with the Jedi Council. He saw problems with the Republic, and he thought that what they were doing was going to fix those problems. And you had to, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. I really think is his kind of his mindset with doing what he's doing.
And evidently, that was Palpatine's mindset too at the beginning of Episode 3. So, time to break that egg.
Yeah, well, he was willing to.
the eggs.
Yeah, he was willing to shatter the whole dozen. I think that his motivations were much more, selfish and kind of power hungry. So we can move into Episode 3, but one of my favorite lines from Palpatine in Episode 3 is when he's deciding to attack the Jedi, and he's like, "We must move quickly. The Jedi are relentless." It's just like he's so exhausted with them. I think he really views them as some sort of infestation of insects, like termites. Right. Like the termites are gonna destroy this house. We have to fucking stomp these termites out. But what were your thoughts on Episode 3, having seen it? And how old are you in 2005, and how old your son?
In 2005. I am 33. That sounds right. And then 72. Yeah, 33, 32 maybe. And my son is 11. He's 12 when this came out.
Okay, so he's his whole experience is almost matching yours perfectly.
Pretty much, yes. But he saw them in order. So
right. I just mean age wise.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I liked Episode 3. It's probably what I liked about Episode 3 is, and before Episode 3 came out, Cartoon Network had those little animated shorts.
Oh yeah, the Clone Wars ones, the Samurai Jack
series.
Yeah, and the last scene of those and the last episode of those matched the first scene of Revenge of the Sith, which I thought that was perfect. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was cool, and it makes sense why Grievous is coughing because that was obnoxious.
Right,
and
right.
Yeah, there's a funny thing about that too, because there was a book that came at the same time. I think it was Labyrinth of Evil, and between that and the cartoon, both of them line up at that point, but they're pretty different.
Labyrinth of Evil was really good.
I like that one.
Yeah, in my mind's eye. Speaking of the novelizations, one of my favorite things, and I think I've pointed this out before, but it's worth repeating because it's so good. But in Revenge of the Sith novelization, when he's like,
I read that.
Yeah, I did too. I couldn't help myself. I needed to spoil. I'm with spoilers for Star Wars. I can't control myself. I'm like an addict. But because that book actually came out a little bit before the movie. But he said when during that whole scene of you're sitting on this council, but we will not give you the rank of master, and Anakin throws a fit. Mace says, "Take a seat, young Skywalker," and then in the book, Anakin replies, "Maybe I'll take yours." And I wish that was in the movie. I needed a little, because that line to me has a little bit of that I'm altering the deal energy in it, you know. And I could have used that in there.
Well, and it's kind of there's a big red flag too, right? It's moving forward, Anakin's going to be a problem, but nobody kind of did anything about it.
Yeah. The Mace Emperor fight. Do you think that Mace beat him, or do you think that he threw the fight?
Mace had him beat.
Okay.
You think the Emperor threw the fight to get Anakin to help him?
Yeah, that's one scene that I always go over in my head and overthink. I think it's supposed to be played the way that you see it, but I always interpreted that fight as, he felt Anakin coming closer, and he wanted Anakin to walk through those doors and see this old man laying on the ground with this Jedi Master getting ready to execute him. And it would have just been the nail in the coffin for Anakin of seeing, kind of the corruption of power with the Jedi that the Emperor had been speaking about.
That I kind of like that. And he already baited Anakin with the whole, there was a Sith Lord that can, cheat death or whatever.
Well, he had to ask him that question, have you ever heard the tale? I'll never forget there was a meme that I saw because he says wise in that speech 1,000 times.
And makes the guy sound like this hero figure.
Yeah. And there was this meme I saw, and it was If Darth Plagueis the Wise, he was so wise, he even stopped the wise from wising. But yeah,
So he had already baited Anakin. Anakin's having these dreams about Padme dying, and so he knew that. So Palpatine already knew that he had him on the hook,
right.
and so if you know what, yeah, he threw that fight.
I mean, that's how
Because
I see it. I don't know if that's the way it's intended to be, but it's what I've always walked away from with it.
it's kind of like he's playing. It was a big risk for a bigger reward kind of thing.
Right.
Kind of like Thanos giving Loki the Mind Stone to do his thing, and it's kind of that situation. Like I'm playing the long.
Right. Yep. I know what you mean there. I gotta watch Endgame again.
I can't do it.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm in a similar boat, but I feel like you know what Endgame and Solo are very similar to me in the sense that like I want to love Solo and I want to like Endgame. So anyway, so after that's all said and done, how did you feel about the prequel trilogy as a whole, and how did your kid feel about it?
I liked it for the most part. I mean, Phantom Menace had its problems. Had a lot of problems. I read that book too before it came.
I did too because I wanted more Maul. I was like, "There's got to be something in here." I'm scouring through it like Indiana Jones going through some archaeology book.
Right. They did explain the rule of two in that book, which kind of helps
right.
to understanding what's going on. But as a whole, I liked it. Obviously, I have the ability to like a movie even though it has big problems. So, as a whole, I was a fan of all three movies. The second movie kind of droned on for the first hour and a half.
Right.
That kind of thing. But as a whole, my son really loved them. Those were his Star Wars movies.
Yeah, dude.
So,
it's generational, man. Like I find that over and over and over again. Continue.
And when the episode 3 figure lines came out, the articulation, they hit it out of the park with the articulation on those figures. And so I have a big tote full of a clone army.
Nice.
And we have the ATTE, we have all that stuff, and we even won Best in Show for his clone trooper in the county fair in 2007. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, and like I said, he wanted to sell them, or I gave him a car a few years back, and he wanted to trade his Star Wars stuff to me. I was like, don't do that. I'm giving you the cars. I want to give you a car, and you keep your Star Wars stuff. So it's in my basement right now. It's all in totes and stored and good to go. So, but we were all in on the figure line for that, for sure. I even had my own clone unit. I had the green ones, the green clone units.
Right.
Those were I had my own drop ship and the whole bit.
That's
so when
awesome.
we played, I pulled those out. So
that's awesome. How let me ask you this: is Star Wars still like a common ground for you and your son to this day?
Absolutely, yes.
So I had that with my dad. My dad is not the type of guy that you would think would ever really like Star Wars, but he really did. And no matter how bad things got, during my teenage years and growing pains kind of years, like we could always go to Star Wars as a safe space. Right.
It was neutral territory.
Yeah.
It's like, we're like, I'm mad at him, he's mad at me. We can sit down, we'll watch some Star Wars, and it kind of smooths everything over.
Exactly, dude. It was like you better get your shit together. What do you know about it? You fucking lived in 1940. But hey, did you hear that the prequels are getting ready to come out? No shit. What time? You know what I mean? Like it was like it would change like over like a second. So I think that's another reason why I treasured those movies. Because they are synonymous. Not only they're a family story, at its heart, I guess, but it's also, it's a story of fathers and sons too. To be fair, but it was also synonymous with my life, and my life experience. What my dad and I always shared.
Right.
So moving past that, did you ever get into the Clone Wars?
I tried.
Mm-hmm.
My son and I went to see. My wife's son and I went to see the Clone War movie where they're rescuing baby Jabba, I guess.
Yeah.
That story didn't do anything for me. I like the Ahsoka
character.
It's funny thing. We left the theater. We went to Target, and they had the ATTE, like for sales, $100.
Uh-huh.
And I know it was it was the only time I ever was like told my wife like we're getting this, and we got it, and it was $100, and it was probably the most expensive toy I ever bought up until that point.
Nice.
And we still have it. It's like I said, it's in the tote in the basement. I guess there was a leg fix for it at some point, but I missed that. But it's all together. It works. It's all together, so no complaints.
Yeah, I hated that movie. Like, and to be fair, it's probably the only Star Wars movie that I've ever hated. I need now that I've seen the Clone Wars series, which I did really enjoy, and the Clone Wars movie is now on Disney Plus. I have every intention of going back and watching it again and giving it another chance, having kind of know how the relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka plays out and how intricate it becomes.
Right.
But yeah, like that movie turned me off to Star Wars. It was probably the only thing in Star Wars history that ever turned me off to Star Wars. Like I probably didn't go back to Star Wars, for a year, which for me it's been a constant in my life. So to be turned away was a big deal.
Well, with the negative connotations of the prequels in general, and then to come out with that next, I mean, that's not a good look.
Yeah, and it was, and I always liked the prequels. Like I knew they weren't well received by a lot of people in my age bracket, but like it was the stuff. Like I could stomach Jar Jar because I had Darth Maul to offset it. And I could, I could stomach the love scene because I had Yoda fighting with a lightsaber and a Jedi army to offset it, and I could stomach. Anakin saying, "No, I love you most. No, I love you infinity +1" in Episode 3 because I had the whole Emperor thing to offset it. But in Clone Wars, like all the R2-y and Sky Guy and all that shit, like, and I just felt like there was nothing to offset it. The Clone Wars series, I do think is like one of those things that it pays off, but it is a big cost of entry. Like you got to watch that movie, and you got to watch like the first 2 seasons before it really starts to kind of find its lane.
It finds its way there, but I don't think those first 2 seasons are that bad. But that movie is definitely that's a strong cost right there.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I don't think they're that bad either. It's just like the sum of its parts. Yeah. But like once it gets up and going though. Like I love it from front to back, but it is like it's hard to like when I like sit down with people and I'm like, look, man, you should give Clone Wars a shot, and then I start thinking to myself like, should they? Because will they survive the first 12 hours of stuff they got to watch in order to get to like the good stuff or whatever it is?
You just tell them start at season 3. Don't worry about the rest.
Right, just pick up the pieces. You'll be fine.
But that's one of those few times I think you can kind of do that. Maybe it's because Star Wars thematically has always been out of order. You don't need all the pieces to enjoy one of them.
Yeah, and you can always tell them you'll pick it up. You're a smart guy. People that hate Star Wars love to be told they're smart. So anyway, okay, moving into the Disney buyout. How did you feel about that?
Oh, Disney buyout. I was excited at first because I knew it meant they're not paying $4 billion to not do anything with the franchise. So I knew it meant more movies. I knew it meant more everything Star Wars, which I was in for. I don't know when they announced that JJ was involved in it, but when they announced that he was going to do the first one, I went like, uh-oh, because I had seen Star Trek Into Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I saw the first Star Trek remake, 2009, I thought was brilliant. I thought the script was brilliant. It was a time travel movie, but what was great about it was they didn't fix it at the end. It was still like their universe was broken and it stayed that way, which is I'm good with.
Yeah.
Then Star Trek, then Into Darkness came out and it was the same movie.
Right.
Storyline, everything was the same, and so I had real concerns about, Force Awakens.
So I just want to comment on that for a second. So my buddy Adam, he is not crazy about Into Darkness either. Doesn't hate it, but he's not crazy about it. However, I loved Into Darkness, but I had never seen Star Trek. So like I think. And don't get me wrong, I was a little skeptical about J.J. Abrams taking the helm as well. but overall excited. But I think, he said it himself, but, those Star Trek movies are Star Trek movies for Star Wars fans. And he's dead on the money in regard to my interest in them. Because I was never a big Star Trek guy, but I love those movies. Those the first two. The third one's kind of fine for me, but the first two I enjoy.
That's also the most Star Trek of the three, I think.
Yep, and many people have told me that too.
Yep.
It's the Beastie Boys, and I love the Beastie Boys, but right tool for the right job. So you're a little skeptical, a little concerned given the Into Darkness, which I understand, and actually ended up, you ended up being right in your skepticism. You know what I mean? Like, he did, episode 7, I still enjoy greatly, but it is definitely, a lot of rehashing of kind of familiar themes and concepts.
One YouTube channel called it A Familiar Hope.
Yes. Yes. So you see it, and how do you feel about it having seen it?
I liked it. I mean, I came out of the theater liking it, and then I thought about it, and I still liked it, but I'm annoyed that they didn't give us an original Star Wars, like a truly original Star Wars story.
Right.
I'm annoyed that they had Mark Hamill, they didn't use him.
Yes.
And I was actually surprised they got Harrison Ford to do it, because I remember when they did the re-releases in the 90s, he did an interview, he said he never wanted to play Han Solo again. And it always stuck out in my mind. So, and it makes sense that they went heavy on Han Solo in that movie, because this is the only chance we're going to get to have him. If he doesn't kill himself on the Millennium Falcon set, we'll have him to the end of the movie. And I think that's why they went that direction. But I mean, I wish they would have had Han and Luke together for some of that movie.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I use as a discussion topic when I encounter the person that doesn't like that Luke had kind of gone into solitude.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that. But yeah, I don't.
So that's one of the things I say is look, for me as a Solo fan, I need that. I need that choice that they made to have turned himself off to the Force. I need that, because if that's not there, I'll never forgive Luke for not being there for Han.
True, I kind of don't, but I don't get into that. Well, see, it's I know you're getting into parts of Last Jedi, but
I think we kind of have to, only because there's so much that's set up in Episode 7 that Episode 8 had to kind of carry forward with. So when we start talking about the the tee-offs, the swings have to be taken into account on some level, I think.
Right. Well, so Luke went into closed himself off from the Force and went into solitude, but before he did that, he made a big mess. When he was going to go kill Ben, and he hesitated, and Ben saw him, about to kill him, he made a big mess with that. He unleashed Kylo Ren on the universe.
So I agree with you there. However, he didn't hesitate. He made a decision not to.
Yeah, but he still made the mess. He still
correct. I agree. I agree that he made the mess, which he often does. But when he encountered Kylo, he says the dark energy was it was overbearing, and he pulls his lightsaber, and in my head it always has struck me as a cop walking into a dangerous situation and just kind of instinctively pulling for his weapon. But then he says, then he says then in a moment in my shame I realized that I was on the wrong course, or whatever he says. I forget what the actual quote is, but that's
right. There's something to that effect.
Right. And then that's when Kylo wakes up, and then Kylo, from his point of view, sees it as a execution, and then Kylo loses his fucking mind. And in that way, Luke does cause this. But I think that in Luke's head, not that he's taking responsibility for it. See, this is shit when we get into it. It starts giving me the chills. I start getting in my bag. I start getting excited. But this is like, that's the thought of like, fuck man, like I am following down the same path that the Jedi have just done over and over and over again, where I feel like I am sitting on this pedestal and I am the ultimate judge of right and wrong. And as a result, doing what I feel like my training and the kind of idea of the Force is, just following through in those footsteps, and I've now caused a problem that wasn't necessarily there. Like, I love that, because he ends up basically doing what his Jedi predecessors have been doing the whole time, is, causing problems by thinking they're doing a greater good.
Okay.
So like I dig that, but I do know that it is a point of contention, and I think a lot of that comes down to the way that we see Luke. And I'm not the guy that's going to sit and say anybody's right or wrong in regard to how they view that character, but I do think that growing up as a Solo kid, you see Luke differently than if you grow up as a Luke kid.
Okay.
So when I got to that point, I was like, yeah, this is him doing, like when he says, in Return of the Jedi, I'm endangering the mission. I shouldn't have come. Like in my head, when I saw that as a kid, I was like, yeah, you're fucking putting my boy at risk here, and you're, but like it all seems to be kind of consistent with how I've seen Luke until kind of the end of Last Jedi, where, Luke has never been a favorite character of mine until 8. And now I'm like a Luke fanatic. Like I can't get enough Luke. And I appreciate even him in the older movies more now, because like I know his trajectory. I know where it ends up putting him. But yeah, that I think that whole idea of him being in solitude in regard to 7 specifically is, I'm not here to debate with you whether or not he should have been there. I agree with you that for the sake of the movie, he probably should have walked on that bridge. The moment that Kylo was going to give Han the lightsaber, or whatever, that Luke probably should have walked like on the opposite side of the bridge and been like, step away from the boy. That he would have known that something was going on. But being as though he didn't, I did need someone to make sense of that for me. So like I appreciate the angle that they took, because I think it's kind of the most believable in regard to why he wasn't there. I don't know.
No, and I get that, and I understand that. I just don't like it.
Right. No, I understand that too.
I mean, that's just my opinion. That's
Yeah. No. And that's 100% valid. See, that's another thing. Like when I get into discussions regarding what sometimes it used to be with the prequels and now it's with the sequels, when having a discussion, somebody's like, "Yeah, no, I get that, and that makes sense. I just don't like it." I get that,
right?
Like that, and I think that's entirely a valid point to stand on. But rarely I feel like do interactions on the internet ever happen that way. It's always,
right, right. I mean, I could still enjoy the movie. I mean, it's just it's not if Kathleen Kennedy came to me and said, "I need you to do this Star Wars movie." It's not what I would have done. That's all.
Right. No, me neither. To be fair, same here. But I'm not sure if I mentioned this last episode or not. But like we just completed the Star Wars saga recently with the family, and 7 might be the fastest moving Star Wars movie.
Yeah, they do keep moving. They keep it moving.
Yeah, it just goes and goes and goes and goes and never takes the foot off the gas, which I'm not sure is better or worse, but it does make the movie fun.
I would have liked them to take some time to explain what's going on in the galaxy.
I agree.
Because what happened to the Alliance after Endor? I mean, I get that they couldn't have, took care of all the Empire, but I would like to have known, like, did the Empire hold on to, like, the area around Coruscant? Is, like, and then the Republic's outside it? Like, how does that work? I wish I would have...
No, I'm with you there. I'm 100% with you there. And I think that the biggest problem with the setup in 7 is that they were trying to avoid the prequels so much that they didn't see the forest from the trees and didn't take the positive elements of the prequels and incorporate them in, like, the political landscape and the kind of world building stuff that the prequels did.
Right.
And not one Gungan was in the entire Resistance. What were they thinking?
I would have. All right, so let's say there was a Gungan in the Resistance, right? Gort, would you have preferred it been the Jar Jar variety or the Boss Nass variety?
Boss Nass. Right in the middle of the meeting. They're talking about Star Killer Base.
Oh, Star Killer Base. Oh.
Yeah. Another memory that I have of Seven, I've told this story 1,000 times, but it was a sold-out theater that we saw it in, right? And I bought a ticket for my buddy Mario, who was a huge Star Wars fan and had passed away in 2010. And him and I had a falling out in 2004, like a pretty substantial falling out. The type of falling out that most people never recover from. And he called me in 2005 and was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "What's up?" And he was like, "Look, we got to get this shit behind us because episode 3 is getting ready to come out." And like we just picked right up. We didn't even talk about the problems that had occurred between the two of us. We just let it all go for the sake of episode 3. So he passed away in 2010, and I bought a ticket for him for The Force Awakens. And it was just Adam, myself, and we had a empty seat, and it was a packed theater. And as the seat started filling up, this woman asked. She was with a guy, and she asked if this seat was taken, and I said yes. And she sat down, and then I felt like I was like, man, she's gonna look at this empty seat the entire movie and think that I just didn't want her sitting next to me.
Right.
So I was like, look, and I told her the story, and she was like, and I was like, so he's not here, and she was like, no, he's here, and we sat and we fucking watched that movie, and like, it was just a beautiful kind of experience, Also, only Star Wars movie I ever watched in the theater back to back. Like we watched it in 3D and then we watched it in 2D, like back to back.
I am not impressed with 3D.
No, me neither, dude. I wanted the fuck out of here.
I just think it just means another $3. Although episode 7, now my second son was born in 2009, and I did not take him to see that because he had zero interest.
Really? Oh, your second son did not have any interest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my sons are 16 years apart, almost to the day.
Okay. But what about your first son?
No, I didn't take my first son to see it either. Only because he wasn't living with me at the time. He was living with his mom, and that's a whole situation.
And families are complicated, dude. I understand it better than most.
Yeah, but I couldn't get him to go. I couldn't get him to see. I think did I take him? I might have taken him to see Last Jedi. I think I did take him to see Last Jedi, but I'm gonna take both of them to see
Skywalker.
To see the Skywalker. Yeah.
So, moving on, how was your experience with Rogue One?
I loved Rogue One.
Yeah.
Like I said, it has problems. I would love to at least read the original script, how that was supposed to play out. But I loved it. I mean, it had that Empire feel to me, where desperation and rebels doing rebel things, Empire doing imperial things.
Yep.
It had that same formula for me.
Yeah, no.
Rebel things like assassinations.
Here we go. I knew it. I was trying to cut you off at the pass, but yep. Gort's not crazy about that movie. And I think Gort's out of his mind.
But that is not why.
No, that is not why. Yeah, dude, that movie, and I, one of my big things with Star Wars that my buddy Tyler always gives me shit about is that, like, to me the crew is very important, and like the stuff that I end up loving most in Star Wars has the strong crew, whether it be just the duo of Anakin and Obi-Wan or the entire kind of crew that rides the Falcon in Episode 4. Or the Knights of the Old Republic crew that you put together yourself. Like, the crew is important to me.
A side note about Knights of the Old Republic, my oldest son and I bought an Xbox to play that game.
Me too.
my oldest son and I, we played the heck out of that game, and there's one of the things we bond over are those video games. That, and we liked Force Unleashed too.
Yeah, they were great. They were great.
Yeah. All right.
No, but yeah, but just saying, like, Knights of the Republic has a strong crew. Like, it's just of the utmost importance to me. And
Right.
Rogue One's crew is super strong. Like, that's a really well put together, like, diverse cast of characters in regard to kind of specialties and personalities and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's like,
Right. And unified purpose.
yes,
You know, like,
yes. It's like the I in my head they're a lot like the X-Men, where like I'm not really 100% interested in any of the X-Men by themselves, but when they come together, I can't get enough of it.
right. I'm so excited that those shows are on those.
Oh, yeah.
The cartoon series on Disney Plus. So
For sure. And then Last Jedi. How did you feel about The Last Jedi? This is probably the most controversial one.
I hated it at first, and then listening to you talk about the Luke stuff kind of talked me down off that ledge.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that has to do with Luke and Rey and like that whole thread through that, it works for me. The slow speed chase and the little side mission to the casino, I felt like that was written in just, we got to give these people something to do.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
we do our story over here.
I agree.
And, yeah.
I think the side mission is the weakest element of that film. And having just watched it recently, and I just said this, but like that movie, when from the point in the throne room with Rey, Kylo, and Snoke to the end, to me, that movie operates at a 10 out of 10. No,
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
It's just that second act stuff with Finn, Rose, and that kind of like it drags, and it doesn't need to. They just do way too much extra shit. How do you feel about? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
And I feel like they wanted to get Finn his woke moment with that, and they just went. And I like the Rose character. She's like the true believer rebel character in this. Like she's the one that has her eye on the prize as far as what has to be done.
Dude.
Especially at the end where she crashes in the Finn and those salt speeders or whatever you want to call them.
I never thought about that, but you're right. Like she is the believer.
Right. She's the Samwise of that movie. Like she's keeps and she gets Finn there, which is I like Finn's character.
I do too.
So it turned him into like a true believer type person.
That's true, man. I never had thought about that, but you're 100% right.
And I think the movie needed that. This is why we're doing. This is why we fight type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. The whole light speed missile thing. I mean, the way I feel about that is I think it's like people say, well, they broke space battles in Star Wars. Well, they did. I think that's more of like that's something you just don't do. Kind of thing, like in that universe.
Well, I just had that conversation with someone recently. I think it was Andy, and the thing about that is that like the reason why that makes sense to me is because like I felt like everybody was like, well, why didn't the rebels just do that to the Death Star in the first film? And it's like, well, because there was hope that they didn't have to.
I think and I think maybe it's a tactic that I think it's just something that there's and I don't know if you know anything about the BattleTech universe, but bombarding a planet orbit is something that is just not done, and it was done in one of the books, and ever since then, like that, the people who did that were condemned, and no one wanted to have anything to do with them, type of thing. So
like a cultural thing almost.
Yeah, right, because like they had other ships they could have done that with before they used the cruiser. Right. They had the frigate and the Corvette or whatever, and they could have use both of those to take the fleet out behind them. But
they could have, but I think at that point they still had hope they could all get away. It wasn't until they realized what they were doing that they started taking extreme measures. Right. Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to see it. Gort, what is your thoughts on that second act? I'm sure we've discussed it before, but it escapes my memory.
I mean, like I like the lightspeed thing, and I made a case for droids, to which we have Droid Lives Matter, piloting one of those things in.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, but I mean, like they've mentioned autopilot and all kinds of stuff, and like I think it's a slippery slope argument. This is one of those moments where you really got to just let that one go, or you're gonna ruin
Right.
something for yourself.
Kind of like time travel and Endgame. You just at some point you just gotta like just let it go.
You know,
Yeah, but that's the whole movie wrapped around something. This is just one moment.
right,
Right.
right,
Right.
yeah. No, I agree on
And
all
I'm
accounts.
not disagreeing either, but like this is something I think it's a lot easier to just say, oh, okay, and just move on. Like just fine, go with it. If you don't like it, I like it.
Yeah, and I think that the emotional payoff does help you swallow it, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Like there, like the like that silence and the whole like, like the music is building up and then it's, poof, and it's like, I think that it's shot so well. That's another thing about this movie is I think it's probably the best shot Star Wars movie. But
Absolutely.
but like it's just done so well that it's like, man, like I get it, the autopilot thing and all that. Like, yeah, and I can always come up with bullshit excuses for that too. Like, well, you can't autopilot hyperspace, or you can't. I would come up with, what I mean. I would come up with something. But yeah, I think that there is that you're right, that you either have to accept it or you're going to drive yourself nuts, and it's not a big enough deal to drive yourself nuts over.
No, it's not the thing to
Yeah.
get hung up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the horse chase.
Right. If you want to get something,
Well,
if you
here's
want
the.
to get hung up,
Go ahead.
if you want to get hung up on something, why didn't they tell everybody the plan about getting the crate? Why was that a secret?
Yeah, that doesn't. I don't know why, other than maybe they were afraid that certain people like your pose, so to speak, wouldn't be able to handle the idea of running. But that's the only thing I can come up with off the top of my head. With thinking about all of that, like Holdo, I like Holdo's character. I don't have any issue with her, but I do think that movie would have been better served had Akbar had that spot.
Yes.
I think so too. I think it would have been more emotional if Akbar
For
piloted.
sure. And I
And you know what he says right before he goes to Lightspeed?
don't you do it.
No. It's a wrap.
Well, he's
It's a trap.
Yes. He's also a big fan of the kind of like that frozen coffee from Starbucks. Forget what it's called. It's a frap. But yeah, I think that it's just like the only excuse I can come up with in my head is that the dude who played him died, and maybe that had something to do with it. But I think
Yeah, but the guy in a
stop them
rubber
with Leia.
suit.
yeah, it's a guy, right? But how and I feel like, but yeah, so I agree with you there, Eric. I feel like it's just like it's a guy in a rubber suit, and on top of that, like I feel like I personally know 30 people that can do that voice.
Well, and I don't mean to make anybody mad, but they can get anybody to stick in the garbage can that's R2D2
Yeah.
and be him.
Yep.
They can get anybody to fit into the C-3PO outfit
Yep.
or the Chewbacca outfit.
Yeah, you get.
So-
that's been one of my famous quotes: is you can get anybody to wear the dog suit.
Right. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that movie would have been better served with him in that spot. No
I
doubt
agree.
about it. Okay, so Solo.
Solo. Overall I like the movie. I like the casting.
You said that a little bit like Kylo Ren. Solo. Han Solo.
I wish they didn't do. They didn't. I wish they wouldn't have explained everything about Han Solo in one movie.
Yeah, I'm with
Like
you.
I could have done without. Like they don't have to explain the Kessel Run to me. They don't have. There's certain things. And I know it suffered. They had to basically reshoot the whole movie. And I know that I think that hurt it because they had to shoehorn some of the existing footage in.
Right.
And I don't know. I wish they wouldn't have, they would let the bit out about, the rebellion at the end where the rebels took the fuel cells. I wish they would have left that out.
Why does that bother you?
Because you don't have to tie everything in.
Okay.
Not everything
Okay.
has to
I got you.
tie in.
I got you. Yep.
And when you start doing that, you sacrifice a good movie for a mediocre movie that ties everything in. And I just wish they wouldn't have.
Yeah, I do
wouldn't have
feel.
done
I do. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, when we spoke last week. That like not everything needs to tie in. Like we don't need to know the full story to Boshek's helmet. You know,
Right.
like it's okay for Boshek to just have a helmet and have super beautiful hair when he takes it off. I do think that Solo. It's so funny to me, man, because the thing that I was most concerned about was the kid that was going to play him, and he's probably my favorite thing about that movie. Him and Chewie.
Yeah, I think he did a good job. No one's going to be Harrison Ford.
Right.
Just no one's going to be that guy. No one's going to sound like him.
Right.
So I think that's probably people's biggest things. He looks like a young Harrison Ford, but he doesn't sound like him. And you're never going to have that. So you got to let that go.
Yeah, I think he did a great job. My issues with that movie are just that, like, well, I think some of it is I don't think they have a cool villain. You know, and I think that hurts that movie a lot. Like, I think Star Wars is the mecca of cool villains. Like, it's either Batman or Star Wars. I'm not sure which one has the best, but it's one of the two. And this villain in this movie is just, like, so not interesting to me. Like,
Just a generic mob guy.
and I get it. Like, they had this, like, extravagant plan for him, but the dude has been wearing red robot makeup for the past 5 years and didn't want to do any kind. Like, I get it, but, like, just get somebody else, Mac.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of good things about it. What you call? I mean, Gort's a big Solo fan. Defend this movie with some of the things I'm talking about, Gort. I need to hear some positivity.
I can't save that villain, but I don't feel that he's really integral to what's going on. They just had to make him the menace, like the boss. Like, if you displease this guy, you're going to get axed.
Okay.
So that's what's helping to set some of the stakes. No, it's all the Han and Chewie moments. It's all the little moments, all the interactions that make that movie, and the story, good or bad. Look, it's all there just to set up those interactions, and I feel like that's all they really wanted to give us.
Right.
Just more of that, and not more of the same, but more of what you never got elsewhere. You know.
Okay.
Right.
Like, you have all the characters in all the movies, but these are, two of the most loved.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get some more of that.
I like Donald Glover in it. I said that.
Yeah, I mean, he does a good job. I don't feel like don't get me wrong, he does a great job. But
he does almost too good of a job.
Exactly. It's like there's nothing new there. It's like it comes across as more of an impersonation. Whereas I kind of appreciate the Solo performance more because I feel like I'm learning something new about this character that I didn't know.
That's a key word, performance versus imitation.
Correct. But he does a great but he does a great interpretation. Like, it's spot on.
Now, if he had his own movie or series or something, I would actually like to see that, but because I think they're going to give him more room to do something and not be a tool for Han Solo's movie, because he's a tool in that movie.
Yeah, no, I get that.
It's not about him. He doesn't he's got his robot, but he doesn't have his Chewbacca moments.
Right.
With that robot.
Right.
Or at least I don't feel they come off that same way. They come off a little silly. It's like, oh, it's my toy is broken, is kind of how I feel. He feels towards it, whether we're supposed to feel that way or not about it.
So now we have to ask, you are our first guest that we have to ask this question to. How are you feeling about The Mandalorian?
I like The Mandalorian. The more he talked, the more I liked him.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Nope, makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
Because we're not getting a Boba Fett impression with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, which that has to happen. Was this show originally developed as a Boba Fett show?
I think this show is taking some concepts that were kind of floating around the office for a Boba Fett movie.
Okay, I gotcha. I liked it. We're starting to learn more about the post-Endor galaxy.
Yep.
Where everything's kind of falling, the Empire's falling apart. And my impression of what's happened to the Empire is, so we don't have this central authority anymore. So you got these moths trying to run around, trying to cobble together their own little fiefdoms. And that's where I think your head Imperial guy in that room is. I think he's a moth.
Oh, really? That's your
yeah.
Okay.
So that's why he's got like a small squad of dirty stormtroopers with him, because they haven't seen supplies in a while, and they might be doing a favor for somebody else trying to get the Boda, the Baby Yoda.
Right. The Boda.
Whoa! Spoilers.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I think anybody listening has
Yeah,
seen it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. We were just messing with you.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
But like Nerd Rage historically, that's a spoiler town.
right,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
right. The I'm with you. I feel like the kind of world building stuff and kind of mythos stuff is the most important thing that we're getting from this. And I also think that you're right in the sense that like Boba Fett seems like he would do anything for $1, whereas this
Right.
guy seems to have a code. Like there's more of a moral compass with him than there is with Boba Fett.
No, I agree. And he seemed, and there's a whole backstory with him and what's going on with the Mandalorians that I'm fascinated by, and I have to know more about it.
I agree. Now you have not
Yeah.
seen the second episode, correct?
I haven't. I haven't.
So I'm not going to spoil anything, with the exception of one thing, but it's not super spoilery. So Joe, Uncle Dolphin, and I sat down and watched the first episode, and we both enjoyed it. But we both didn't think it was anything amazing either. It was just good, solid Star Wars fun. And I had said that, I definitely feel like it's a Western, but I was like, this guy kind of feels like Batman to me. Like with all the gadgets and the man of few words and, his identity is... and then I'm not going to spoil anything, but in the second episode, there is a sequence that I was like, now if that's not fucking Batman, you tell me what that is. Gordon knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But yeah, so like so here's the thing. Batman is he's probably right after Solo in terms of my favorite characters of all time. So like I think that's another reason why this show is resonating with me. But I agree. I think it's important that he talks more. One of my concerns is that the IG-11 droid might be out of play, and I hope not too. I need this character to have somebody next to him all the time to have a conversation with. Because, I think it's important not only to the show, but to the character and to kind of buying in.
Well, especially if we never see his face.
Right.
So we have no facial expressions to go off of even.
Right.
So it's going to be...
And I was going to say, look, if it's not the robot, well, let's hope that it's Bill Burr.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Cara Dune too. Whoever Gina Carano, whatever. I'm super interested in her too. Because she's built like a truck Mac, but or a Mac truck. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with her too. But I do hope that 11 droid comes back in some capacity. But I'm getting the feeling that maybe that's not the case. I don't know.
No.
All right. So and then, what are your thoughts about Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker coming?
Well, having listened to your spoiler podcast,
right?
It seems like they have to put a lot in there to make the first two movies make sense. Mm-hmm. Which I don't like that kind of catch up in a movie, like playing catch up with the bit about Lando's daughter. I wish they would have introduced that. I wish they would have had Lando in the first movie at least,
or Finn's sister, one of the two. Right,
something like that. I wish they would involve Lando. Well, that's a whole. I wish what stuff I would have done. I don't want to go there, but it seems like a lot in a short amount. Even 2.5, 3 hours. It's a short amount of time to explain a lot. I'm not going to.
Go ahead.
And I'm not going to care about his sister or that new little bowling ball with a head rolling around. I'm not going to care about those characters because they don't mean anything. I don't have anything invested in them.
I hear you. I think that droid is a huge swing and a miss for them. I think that they expected everybody to instantly fall in love, and nobody gives a shit. Maybe that'll change when the movie comes out.
It's a weird thing that they even bothered to do that.
I agree.
Like BB-8 had, I think, a reasonable presence in Episode 7, but I don't feel he holds, the same weight that R2 and 3PO did as a team or not, even just individuals. No. But in Last Jedi, you don't get a lot of BB-8.
Yeah, I agree. He doesn't hold the same weight in 8, but I do feel like he fits. Like he's a presence in 7. He's a big, and I feel like as soon as they showed BB-8, the entire world just fell in love with him. They're like, I don't know what this is, but I like this. And I feel like they wanted that with Dio, but everybody was like, no, can you put that thing to the left so I can see behind it, please? You know, like it's like the reaction is entirely different.
I think it's a swing and a miss that R2 and C-3PO aren't bigger presence in all these movies.
Well, especially R2.
Right.
I feel like 3PO. I feel like I'm getting a good amount of 3PO. Like I'm not a good amount necessarily, but I'm content. Whereas with R2, I kind of feel like I could use more. But I think that what you said about there's a lot to tie up. I agree.
Right.
I agree, and it's concerning to me too. But you know what? I felt the same way with 3. I remember that distinctly. That I was like, Episode 3 has a lot of work to do.
Right. Well, it always feels like that with the prequel trilogy and with this trilogy, they're fixing things that were wrong with the previous movies, and that's going to take up screen time. They're tying up these loose ends that should have been okay with in the movies previous. It seems like it's a lot of waste. That's
maybe. You might. I think there are some things here. Like I think there are some missteps for sure in the sequel trilogy. The way I think there's missteps in all of them, but
right.
But yeah,
you're gonna find something wrong with any movie.
Right, but I think there are some missteps taken with the sequel trilogy because they wanted to kind of gauge some reactions from the fans and stuff. But by the time that they're in a point where they had to make a decision, they've backed themselves into so many corners that the options are limited.
I feel like that's what they did with Rey. Like
I 100% agree.
Like the first movie, they didn't want to explain her character. Just here, accept this person, and then we'll see which way the wind blows on trying to fill in the blanks later. And I think they did that with a little bit with Episode 8 too.
I agree.
And now people need answers to these questions, and they're going to go. I guess they're doing what, clone?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be. Well, I mean, I think I know what it's going to be. Well, I knew it was going to be the first. They've changed this. Like every movie goes through rewrites and stuff, and but so I don't know. Like the spoilers that we've gotten, I don't know at what phase. You know what I mean? That we got. Right. Like, did we get version 1.0 and there's a version 3.0 that has some changes that have some major. Like if you got the spoilers for Episode 5 upon first hearing, you would have no idea that Vader was Luke's father.
Right.
So I don't know if it's one of those scenarios or not.
I got you.
Do you have your tickets?
I don't, but we have a local theater here. I live outside of a town called Ravenna, and it's a small theater, and chances are I'll be able to see it the first weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll probably get tickets as it approaches, but there won't be any problem. I won't have any problem seeing it at least the first week.
Gotcha.
So
Cool.
I'm not worried about it.
Gord, do you have any? We got a couple minutes left. Do you have any questions that you want to ask? Like any rapid fires?
Rapid fires I have. But like, the real lingering question here is, we're talking about different versions of the movie. When are we going to get the special edition with Constable Zuvio?
well, now they'll throw him in everything because now that he's officially in the canon, I'm sure he'll pop up more.
Do you think that when they discover all the cases of nothing but Constable Zuvio action figures sitting in a warehouse, they're going to put a sticker on it that says The Mandalorian?
Sitting in Pinkerton's basement? What's funny is...
bet you he wishes he kept the minted box.
Yeah, I know. Cody has a buddy of his that like only collects Admiral Akbar. And he collects, I think, I could be wrong, but I think he collects every representation of Akbar. So like if it's on a coffee mug, he has it. If it's a micro machine, he has it. And if it's a 6-inch figure or whatever, he has it. Mm-hmm. In addition to this, he buys every 3 3/4 Akbar from the original Kenner line that he comes across. So he has like this entire army of 3 3/4 Admiral Akbars. It's like his thing, right? And I think that Chris is well on his way to being that for Zuvio.
Nice.
And I wish him the very best of luck.
So he's going to have Zuvios and Ollies.
Yes, exactly. Let me ask you a question. This is a question that was posed to us on Nerd Rage. And I'm going to kick it to you guys. And I might toy with the idea, Gord, if we like it, to ask each additional guest the same question. But your favorite character of each movie. Okay? Are you ready? Do you understand the concept? Everybody on board?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Episode 1, Eric.
Episode 1, my favorite character is probably Obi-Wan.
Gort.
Qui-Gon.
And mine is Maul. Episode 2, Eric.
The pressure of an answer.
It's like Kit
I'll have
Fisto.
Episode 2, I'll have to say probably, I'm going to say Obi-Wan again.
Okay.
Because he's the only one that's really kind of like doing the main part of the story.
Okay. Gort.
So I kind of want to say Dexter. I actually really do enjoy that character.
Oh, the dude in the diner.
Yeah.
How big your pocketbook is.
But if I wanted to cheat here a little bit, I would say, she's in the movie for seconds, but Ayla Secura, because I cared about the character from the comics.
Yeah,
so I was
cool.
really excited that made it into a movie.
She the one with the black headdress?
No, that's
the blue Twi'lek.
Yeah, she's the blue
okay,
Twi'lek.
okay, I got you.
The black headdress is Illuminala Unduli.
Yes.
Luminara Unduli.
I have both those action figures. I just get their names switched up sometimes.
Mine is Yoda. So episode 3, Eric.
Episode 3, I'm gonna have to say, even though he's a big dope in this movie, I'll say Anakin.
Okay. Gort.
Palpatine.
Palpatine is mine as well. Episode 4, Eric.
Oh, Luke Skywalker.
Gort.
Darth Vader.
And mine is Han Solo. Episode 5, Eric.
Probably Han Solo in this one.
Gort.
Yoda.
Mine is Darth Vader. Episode 6, Eric.
Probably I'm gonna go with Vader on this one because he's conflicted. He doesn't know what I got my kid here. I'm gonna get I like it. I just like the dynamic there.
Okay. Gort.
Lando.
And mine is Leia. Mainly because she helped make me realize what my sexual preferences are.
All right. Getting back real quick. Leia. Princess Leia never did anything for me.
Really?
Really. Even like the slave outfit, not even a wiggle, nothing.
Wow. Yeah, dude. I was head over heels. And also I think it's strange, very Freudian. But, I also viewed her very much as a mother type figure for most of my childhood, with the exception of her later time spent in Jabba's palace. Then she wasn't in the family anymore. She's stepmom at best.
She always felt like she always felt like a sister type of person. Even like when you didn't know that it was his sister, always kind of felt that way. So it's always kind of like, yeah, she's pretty. She's got everything going on there, but no, not for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And a real quick question: in Jedi, when she hooks up with the Ewok and goes back to their village,
Well, I wouldn't say she hooked up with him, but yeah, go ahead.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
What was she doing? She was like, she changed her clothes, she did her hair. It's like, you're on a mission. What are you doing?
Those Ewoks definitely stripped her down and just made that happen.
1,000%. And I think it goes back to the classic phrase, "when in Rome." But yeah, no, I hear you. Okay, so episode 7, Eric.
Episode 7. I like Finn.
Okay. Gort.
I like his, yeah.
Gort.
Rey
is mine as well. Episode 8, Eric.
I'll probably go with Rey on this one because I like her whole journey of becoming a Jedi and trying to find out where she belongs and everything. I think I like that.
Yeah. Gort.
Kylo Ren.
Mine is Luke. Rogue One, Eric.
Rogue One is what was his name? Not Jin, but the spy. What was his name?
Cassian.
Thank you. It was on the tip of my. I like Cassian the best.
Okay.
Because he's the kind of dude that he's had to get down and dirty for the
Yep, for sure.
for the alliance and for the cause, and then he's finally got a chance to do something, and the higher ups don't want him to do it. But he got a crew to grab some people just like him together, and we're gonna go take care of this because it needs to be done.
For sure.
I love that aspect of him.
Gort.
The Death Star.
Single.
If I'm gonna pick a person, it'll be Tarkin. But
Okay.
Death Star.
Mine is Two Tubes. No, mine is K2SO. And
He's a close.
yeah, that I love that character, man. And then Solo.
Solo. I'll go with I'm gonna go with Han on this one. I know he's the main character, but like I said, I really like the way the guy played it, and right. I think it works. It's too bad the movie was sandwiched between two blockbusters when it came out.
Oh, for
That's
sure,
all.
for sure.
I think Deadpool 2, and I forget the other movie that came out right then.
Yeah, it was Deadpool and Infinity War.
Oh yeah, it didn't have a chance.
Yeah, it didn't have a chance. Gort.
Chewbacca.
Mine as well. What I found interesting about that when we were asked this question and then we kicked it around is that for me it was a different character for every movie for sure, but just that I'm following and my interest varies so much from movie to movie in regard to what my stake what the stake is in for me. I don't know. It was an interesting little exercise. I'm thinking about asking the future guests the same question, and then we can go through it a bit faster because we don't have to do ours unless one of ours changes, which is okay. Eric, thank you for coming on. I appreciate
No problem.
it.
Thanks for having me.
And divulging a lot of the personal family stuff that was pretty interesting, and it's always interesting to see how an individual's personal family dynamics align with a very complicated family dynamic in these films. So that's kind of stuff always allures me. So I definitely appreciate you coming on. Glad we were able to have you on. I know there were some scheduling conflicts. And
yeah, I'm sorry about that last 2 months ago, but
yeah, no worries, no worries whatsoever. No worries whatsoever. We're flexible. Gort, you got anything to say?
Well, I wanted to say thank you for coming on the show, Eric, and it was a pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
All